Hello and welcome back to the Double Radio Wrestlecast. It's that time of the year again, and AEW hit us with two back-to-back pay-per-views.
The double whammy.
The double whammy with a third coming at the start of next month as well.
Yeah,
so
very soon.
Very, very quick speed comparatively to AEW's normal pay-per-view schedule. So yeah, All In and All Out have happened. We've had about a week since All Out concluded to get our thoughts together about some of these matches and a number of out-of-match things that have gone down. So we're going to get into it. We're just going to jump right in because we got two shows to cover. We're going to go pretty quick compared to our normal format here. We're not going to analyze every match. We're basically just going to move through until we hit a match that we want to actually talk about, and then we'll talk about that match more in depth and go through the rest. Kicking it off with All In, which headline news, biggest paid wrestling attendance ever.
Yeah.
Wembley Stadium.
Wembley Stadium.
Good venue.
Big, huge, amazing venue, famous venue for, just being massive, open air. A lot of fantastic, artists have played there, and now we have a massive, pretty solid wrestling show to, just blow so many other expectations out of the water. So many people said that it wouldn't happen or it would flop. I hope those people are enjoying eating their own shoes.
And a really weird focus on the number of tickets sold for months, leading up to this. I think because there was the chance that it became the highest selling event because they kept opening up more sections of the arena in the lead up. And people started to realize that it was maybe gonna be a big deal, but it was weird. There was a weird amount of conversation about ticket sales, as often follows AEW with their events. All right.
Yeah, it's just that's the whole thing. Is people are still preying upon the company's downfall in any sort of way. If they did not,
no way they're gonna make it past a year, Ryan. No way.
4 years later.
4 years down the line. All right, well, let's kick it off with a little bit of talk about 0 Hour and then get into the actual pay-per-view. 0 Hour was, I think, only really significant for two things, and one of them is pretty big. So let's get into this.
One of them is gigantic.
First one, we'll calm down and exist it without the space of CM Punk for just a moment. Okay.
Yes.
Just one match. Adam Cole and MJF versus Aussie Open. Your standard pre-show match. But I think the notable thing here is that Adam Cole and MJF have a headline match against each other on the same card. So this was two matches in a night.
Yeah, and it wasn't like they really... it wasn't like a super crazy, long, grueling match or anything, but to me, at least, it didn't look like they were holding back very much.
Yeah.
They did have a solid, 4 hours or something to wait until they had to do stuff again, but, things very well could have, gone wrong, and I don't think they just still wanted to put on a really solid match, which at the end of the day they won, which makes their fight against each other at the very end of the evening, I think, more interesting. I think that was a great first match to have on the freaking pre-show.
Yeah, this had to happen on the pre-show, so they had that time between the two matches, I think.
It's just the way that they have their tag team too, it's a lot more character focused, dare I say, slightly comedy leaning in a sense with everything that they do. So they don't need to go as hard as a normal, what you would expect for a normal fare for an AEW Ring of Honor tag team match. They can just they can do the double clothesline, they can do the kangaroo kick. They can do some pretty simple-ish spots compared to what both of them are capable of, just to play it safe. And that's the thing, is they're at the point where because they're so over, they can do stuff like that instead of having to also feel like they need to do all that, because they can do anything, and the crowd
by this point,
Especially because I think the behind-the-scenes bits from Better Than You, Baby have really taken off compared to other attempts, aside from maybe Best Friends, at behind-the-scenes skit type stuff during the actual shows. They've seen a lot of success with that, with this particular tag team, and I think with good reason. All right, let's jump into the fire.
Gotta get right off the bat. We can't
Get
stop
right
now.
into it.
Yep.
With our next match is Hook versus Jack Perry, FTW Championship match. And look, the match doesn't matter. The match was good.
It was good. It was pretty solid. I liked it a
match.
lot. Without knowing any of this, I was again surprised that this would be on the pre-show because it was a very good match. But
Brett, were you surprised that was real glass?
you know what? If I was in that position, I probably would have told him not to use real glass. If I were to be that guy, but he used real glass, which is a real problem.
Real big issue. An issue big enough that saw Jack Perry indefinitely suspended and CM Punk fired.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yes, I mean, originally the glass thing, I don't believe was this glass in particular. It was going to be a couple of weeks back that Jungle Boy wanted to do a spot involving glass where he wanted to be real. Punk wanted it to be, the normal sugar glass, not something that would be too dangerous. I can kind of see why he would come.
Which is the smarter choice.
Yeah.
I want to be clear about that. That is probably the better choice.
But Punk also thought it was because, Jungle Boy wanted to take time off and have him written off. And in actuality, he also got approved time off after that spot was going to happen anyway. So a lot of misunderstandings there, and Punk kind of assuming the worst like he does. And then, Jungle Boy wasn't too happy about this story getting out because it feels like he, felt like someone on Punk's camp, leaked that out to try to make him look bad.
Even the fact that we have the phrases Punk and Perry's camps is disturbing to me.
Yeah.
That's not a good split to have in a locker room.
Yeah, Jungle Boy said, "Look, real glass, cry me a river." And I just thought at the time because I knew about it, oh, that's a little funny.
That's what a heel thing to say. I will chuckle at that.
Yeah.
And then turns out no. So again, match was good, but then after this, a little confrontation happened backstage.
We got a bunch of conflicting reports too, which is really funny because I think SRS from Fightful was the first person to talk about the situation.
Well, in the middle of the show.
Yeah, during the show, had a vastly different take than everything that came afterwards. It looks like his source was from Punk's camp that had reported that Perry had gotten in Punk's face and started a fight, basically. And then immediately, Miro and a bunch of other people went to Twitter, X, Instagram, whatever, and were like, that's not what happened at all. And then another investigation started. A third-party firm.
And ended pretty quickly compared to the last time that this happened. And I think the thought around that is just because Wembley is such a high-profile stadium that has so many people and so many events going through it all the time that it's just it's covered in security cameras. So
there
whether or not we
in the
ever
past where people at soccer matches and whatnot, football matches have
exactly
run out. So there's cameras everywhere.
Yeah, so I don't know if we will ever see that footage. It would be, because nobody got seriously injured or died. It would be funny. I'm going to come out and say it. It'll be funny to see this interaction, knowing what happens now. But I would assume that the people doing the investigation watched that and were like, yeah, no, actually, Jack Perry just kind of walked backstage and Punk went up to him and put him in a chokehold immediately, and Samoa Joe had to play as mediator because Punk and Joe have their match in 10 minutes at this point, probably less than that. It was their first match of the actual show was Punk and Joe.
Yeah, he also said he apparently lunged towards Tony, and then
that's the thing that's supposedly the big one is Tony on the collision after this was he was afraid for his life, as he put it there. So that's frightening to think about, for sure.
So yeah, rest in peace, CM Punk.
Yeah. He's not
Then-
dead. He's just gone.
Well, we got to
He
talk about it a little
fired.
bit more because he had the next match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
Like,
true.
and Samoa Joe was our
Which
next match on the
also-
card.
Like watching this match, because just like it didn't seem like there was anything wrong. Like both Punk and Joe, I guess, are just such professionals. I guess practice in the ring wise, not out of the ring, obviously.
Yeah.
That they were just kind of able to have a normal match. But then like you see some of the stuff like after the fact of like Punk like waving and flipping off the crowd and saying goodbye and stuff. And like again, you wouldn't really think about that too much. But then kind of knowing what happened, I wonder if he knew he was fucked because of just what happened backstage immediately
Yeah.
before. I mean, he really I'm sure in the moment he probably thought he could have gotten away with making a serious lunge toward Tony, which I don't. It doesn't really matter how horrible CM Punk's actual MMA career is. Compared to Tony Khan, the man is like he's a twig.
Yeah.
That's a
Tony
real
Khan,
threat
the,
to
the wealthy, nerdy twig. I think is the way to put
exactly.
it.
Yeah, he works out at the library, not the gym. So it sucks that it had to come to this point. But and again, it just doesn't. Watching that match, it doesn't really seem like anything is wrong until you really think about it and watch just what Punk does after the fact.
Yeah.
Even then, it's like a maybe.
Yeah. The
I
match
mean, while this
good.
was going on, I had no idea that had happened until after the show. But
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
nothing crazy in this match. Punk
No,
retains his title.
that doesn't exist anymore.
That doesn't exist. That also never really existed, to be fair.
But it's called the Real World title.
Well, the real world title is now back with the people that it belongs with. It's not there anymore. Yeah, it that was good because Punk and Joe are very good at their jobs, but I don't think this was crazy to write home about. Punk went out on a Pepsi plunge, which is a move that he tries to avoid using just because it's supposedly pretty destructive to himself to do it. But yeah, I mean, wild. Especially considering that All Out is in Chicago, which we'll get to
Yes.
when we talk about All Out.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was the end of Punk's career.
Yeah,
With
because
AEW.
if we could just stick on this for like 5 minutes,
Yeah.
where else does he have to go? Like, there's nothing. He's going to be commentating on MMA matches for the rest of his life if he works
mean-
at all. He probably has enough money to just sit and do whatever. But
There's
man.
already Punk WWE rumors, but the rumors are that Punk reached out and nobody was interested.
Exactly, because he
So-
show up backstage like not too long ago after the whole
Yes.
elite thing happened, and they kicked him out because they didn't want him back there.
He was asked to leave. Apparently, it wasn't. People made it out to be like more of a violent deal than it was, but it was not violent. It was just he showed up because some friends were having matches. Of course, that now that we know he was looking for an exit, that may not have been as innocent as it seemed at the time. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is a wild thing to go out on, and I think Punk
Yeah.
peaked in his match with MJF, and
For
since
sure.
then it's been downhill.
Yeah.
So
He can go to NWA. He can go to Impact. Totally.
Oh, they'll take him. Trust me, they would love to have him.
yeah,
Oh
I
my
could see
God.
NWA biting that, but Impact, I don't know. I feel like a number of the Impact locker room probably also have problems with Punk at this point. So
Yeah.
God.
anything
What a way
else
to
about
go.
Punk before we move on from him forever?
Until we get to the second part of this, no.
I mean, it just what a way to self-destruct your own career.
Hey,
for-
Yeah.
we can watch Collision now without feeling guilty. So
Time when it's on. This is true.
all right. Next up, we have Golden Elite versus Jay White, Juice Robinson, Konosuke Takeshita. Another really solid match.
Oh yeah.
With this lineup, I think you're never going to get a bad match.
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
didn't know much about Juice Robinson going into his stint in AEW, so seeing him pull out the impressive stuff that he does next to everyone else in this match who is also incredibly impressive is really cool. Kota Ibushi existing in AEW is still surreal to me.
I know. I wish he would be like signed and not just like
Yeah.
showing up sometimes. But I feel like this is a strange sort of dream match for a lot of people that, like a year ago, probably you wouldn't even think that something like this would even seriously happen in the biggest pay-per-view too. But this group of people together just works so well, and this is just one of those things where and they're kind of doing it in some ways, where there were multiple times where they'd split off into like their little mini like 2 or 3 minute one-on-one segments with just the two guys at a time in the ring, and just each of those matchups was really, really, really fun to watch, and we got exactly what I wanted most from this, which we'll talk about later, which is Kenny versus Konosuke, just singles.
Exactly.
But even their segments in this, like they set up that match perfectly as if it wasn't going to happen anyway. And seeing the Golden Elite fight together, it better not be the last time that happens, because they all work so well. Just doing all of like some of their signature moves, like one off of another.
Brett, if we get at any point a match where the Golden Lovers intro plays and Kenny and Ibushi walk out and it's just a straight tag match, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Oh yeah, at this point, yeah,
lose my mind. It's gonna be so good. Yeah, I think this is really big for Takeshita too, because they won this match. Takeshita, Robinson White won against the others. And yeah, Takeshi's been super impressive. I think he constantly has gotten comparisons to a younger Kenny Omega. And I think AEW is absolutely playing into that. And I'm just really happy to see the two of them work together, because Takeshita is very much gives off the same sort of energy that Kenny does.
For sure.
I think it's also just cool seeing this match happen, considering, like, I don't know, like earlier this year, we were all under the assumption Jay White was going to WWE.
Yeah, for a little bit, that's true.
And I think the only reason why that stuff fell through is because of WWE's merger with Endeavor or whatever, the UFC company. They're going to be the whole one big thing. A bunch of stuff got frozen that they were going to do during then, and I think it all ended up working out the best.
Seriously,
yeah, I feel like Jay White is a much bigger deal here than he would have been in WWE.
Yeah,
I just because the way the Bullet Club Gold is working right now, like it needed that straight man to kind of like, okay, like the Guns are like a solid tag team, but they're silly. Juice Robinson is really, really silly, and Jay White is like funny also, but they needed someone who was just like actually just,
he feels like a legitimate threat,
a badass
compared to the rest of the group.
And the way they all
Juice
bounce
Robinson,
off
I think
each
you
other
could say fits that to some degree, but I think he's just less well known.
And Cardblade.
And Cardblade. Don't forget Cardblade. I still prefer Switchboard, but you know what? That's not the name, so we'll go with Cardblade. But it's
Switchboard's pretty good too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited to see where literally everybody in this match are going from this point on. I feel like by this point, finally the Guns have like actually become something that isn't just like, I will wait until their match is over and then it's done. And I feel like the Bullet Club Gold is the proper place for them. Because that team just works so well together, even if it's just like the Guns on the outside, which they were during this match. But yeah, super, super, super good. This is one of my highlights from this show, absolutely.
All right. Moving on to FTR versus the Young Bucks for the Tag Team Championships. This is another... anytime you put these two teams together, it's going to be a banger. As we often say with matches that involve either the FTR or the Young Bucks. With any other teams. But yeah, you put them together, and I think that there's a really sort of magic to the way that these two interact with each other, because they have such different styles at a baseline.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see. I also think because of the closeness between FTR and Punk, it's impressive that it didn't go horribly wrong.
Oh, that's
at
because
some
FTR
point.
professionals.
Yeah, FTR
This
are
is true.
professional.
This is true. This is very, very, very true.
Yeah, it's. I think FTR and the Young Bucks are the exemplifiers of you can disagree on a big thing and still work together fine. And yeah, great job here leading in. FTR retains their titles, and this is leading into another match at All Out that we'll get to later.
Yeah, but this match is kind of crazy. It's they like I feel like out of all of them that they had with each other, I think this one was the best, most likely, in my opinion, because like the one that happened like all that time forever ago, I feel like they kind of played side to the stuff with them and Hangman more so
Yeah.
than
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
being about both of them. I feel like this was like the perfect time to actually just, all right, we're focusing on the stuff between each other, and there's a bunch of callbacks to those other matches that was fun to see. Like Cash trying to do a bunch of the flippy stuff and ultimately not working out as well, almost throwing the match. And I just liked seeing how they're like trading each other's finishers like that. It was just a whole lot of fun.
Also,
Yeah.
Wheeler botching a 450 splash. It's always very
Yeah.
fun. I don't remember the original match. The lead up we're following,
Long
or the
time
write up we're
ago.
following, says that it's a callback. So I'll choose to believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in general, because like that was their first match they had wasn't too long after I think FTR first
Came into
showed
the
up.
company.
Yeah. So like it's understandable like they had to have some kind of like story because I would a lot of people watching probably didn't know really who they were. But now by this point, if you don't know who FTR is and you're watching wrestling, period, you must not be paying attention. So
Or
by
you're
this
like
point now
me,
they
and the
can just
first time they
have
showed up was after you watched the entirety of NXT that had
Yeah.
been available beforehand, and you lose your mind.
that probably helps.
Yeah. Importantly, this match ends on a "can they coexist" moment of the Bucks refusing a handshake. Classic wrestling move. On to the Stadium Stampede. This was one of the big ones that we've called out that we want to talk a little bit more about, and I think there's a lot of good reasons for that.
This match is, in all the best ways, a dumpster fire.
Yes.
I'm
Everything
so
went
happy
wrong.
to see Santana and Ortiz again as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Feels like they've been sidelined a lot. So this was Blackpool Combat Club and Santana and Ortiz versus best friends Eddie Kingston and Penta. Great.
Which I wonder
lineup.
if Phoenix didn't have travel issues. That was the reason why he got written off the week before, week leading up to. I wonder who the other member was going to be of Blackpool Combat Club. I do kind of wonder if maybe Danielson would have been good at that point, but I don't know. But anyways, like it's great to see
I think it would have
Santana
been a
Ortiz
risk
again
because Danielson had a big match at All Out as well. So
that's true.
Don't want to overwork an injury.
Well,
we
didn't know that yet.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be someone else.
But yeah, just like it's great to see Santana and Ortiz again, and I'm glad.
Weirdly, they gave Santana a first name. I don't know if anyone else latched onto this. They kept saying Mike Santana, and I didn't understand what was going on for a while.
Doing a singles thing now.
Yeah, it looks like they are going to be splitting, which makes sense because apparently they haven't liked each other for a while. So it was nice that they had their one last thing together and something that big, and now they can just kind of go do their separate things, which they want, So, but just like where to start with this match? I mean, like it was just crazy right from the get go. I loved how they had the two cameras to follow both what's going on in the ring and then what's going on everywhere else.
Yeah.
So many crazy spots. Penta was a house of fire at the start, really just like demolishing people.
So Penta with the costume change.
Yes, I had to watch this whole like part of the show from this point on after the fact because I was across the country on a trip. But while I was watching it, with Ryan. He just didn't say anything. Like Penta got like he just like landed horribly, and I was just like, oh, well, I guess. Damn, that sucks. I guess he must have gotten like injured, and they're just taking it. Like they just played it completely seriously, like they always do.
Yeah.
No, Penta Oscuro's out now. He actually died, and he got replaced by
he
his
got
his
replaced.
post-mortem spirit, which
Yeah.
is that's hilarious.
And then
That's so
then
good.
they go up to try to do a ladder spot, and the ladder breaks, and then somehow he gets back up on the ladder anyway to do the ladder spot.
Teleports up to the top of the ladder that has no rungs on it, like 2/3 of the way
Yeah.
up. I have no idea how that happened, but it's I like again. You said before it was just like a complete garbage fire, but I honestly I don't
I
know if
love
I
it.
would have had it any other way.
Yeah.
Exactly, because it was
Yeah.
fun. They managed to make it work. I don't think anybody actually got like seriously hurt. Like everyone was doing their thing fine after this, and
Yeah.
it's just this is how you handle botches to make them part of a match without having them ruin it.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. There's all skewers were in this match.
Let's talk about the
Yes.
skewers for a second. Let's talk about the skewers for a second because I think I finally found the wrestling thing that's too far from me.
I'm the same. I'm the same way.
It is distinctly Moxley with skewers in his head, standing up, half of them falling out and half of them staying there.
Yeah.
Like those actually got hammered into this man's head. That was too far for me. That was too much.
I love
I
it.
don't blame you. It is awesome, but
It's
also it's
awesome,
disgusting.
horrifying.
Yeah, I like that's one of those things where like okay, like I'll take like a suplex or whatever, and that'll throw my back up. But I'm never taking that. You will not get me with the skewers as long as I live.
Dude. Mox is an animal.
Yes, yes.
For doing that,
You can-
and
You can see
Yeah.
here too with how they are leading up to be the eventual main event. Like Cassidy really like
Mhm.
surviving a bunch and getting through everything just fine. The whole orange punch with his hand covered in glass too was
So based.
crazy.
yeah,
So cool.
super cool.
Man.
I think individually a lot of the spots here were really good. This was just a fun match. I think this has
Sue?
achieved what they wanted a Stadium Stampede to achieve.
Sue, yeah.
Sue made it out to to Wembley.
The Wembley State, still in the
Of course
car,
he
of
did.
course.
Of course she did. So, yeah, I great Stadium Stampede. I think of the Stadium Stampedes that have happened, this is probably my least favorite one, but that's like saying it's my least favorite chocolate cake, you know?
Yeah, none of them have been bad, I don't think.
I
They-
think
Yeah.
I think this one is. The first one was just so crazy with the music constantly going. I think I like this one better than the one that we just had with the Elite in Blackpool Combat Club.
Yeah.
That's fair, yeah.
Not because like I mean there's the awesome spot with the super kick but like I just feel like I remember a lot more from this one than that one.
Yeah, especially because I think Best Friends is a group that you wouldn't jump to immediately to be involved in this type of match.
I
But
love
they
how
make
they're
perfect
just like
sense that they are.
yeah. They're just the funny hardcore tag team for just no
No
reason, but it's awesome. Ugh,
All right. Any last thoughts about the Stadium Stampede? Nope.
Really?
No?
All right.
Yeah.
Moving on to should mention Best Friends won that.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
yeah.
did win. This is important because it's building to a singles match in the next show. AEW Women's World Championship 4-way match. Hikaru Shida with her recently won championship. Toni Storm, Dr. Britt Baker, and Soraya. This was, I think, a predictable match, but better than I was expecting it to be. Not as good as I would hope it would be.
Yeah,
Because it's
not
maybe
as
where
good as
it
I would
fell.
hope it would be.
Yeah, the Outcasts as a group have not been super convincing for most of their run. I think I think AEW realized that with this and sort of played them up for the last time. It seems like.
Now Tony's crazy.
Yeah, now Tony's crazy, which is a much better gimmick for her. I think it's doing very well.
Yeah, I'm actually interested in what she's doing now as opposed to being bored out of my mind.
Because there's this problem with the women's roster that we talked about a lot of AEW just not getting very creative with gimmicks or matches.
Yeah.
They tend to show the same 4 people and the same, basically, I want to be the very best that there can be attitude.
This is my moment. This is my show.
Yeah. Lots of this
Take
is
a drink
my
every
show
time
is
you hear
being
that.
thrown around. And they've started to move away from that, I think, or they've been more self-aware of it and have used that to further their own storylines. And I think that's good. I loved getting Sheeta up there with a belt in front of an audience. I think they did a really good job, even just having her be this transitional championship. Because Saraya takes the belt, as I think anyone could have predicted. She's a UK wrestler. The original Saraya, her mother was with her for this and had her own spot and everything. So, yeah, really cool moment for Saraya. Not, I think, a match of the night, but it was inoffensive. Any other thoughts on the women's tag match or women's 4-way?
I think it was, if I feel like it would have been, I would have liked this more if this was like a Jamie Hayter, winning big in front of the home crowd, but they needed to have someone besides Ospreay, who's not technically with the company, win big in front of the home crowd because Pac's injured.
Yeah, and Hayter was probably the plan, but
Hayter was probably going to be
injured.
the plan. Didn't get back fast enough, unfortunately, to make the show, so she could, be a part of the match after she lost the title, and they had to have someone doing big in front of their biggest show. So, Saraya!
Woohoo!
I hope she doesn't keep it for too long.
Yeah.
And it was like a fine
not that I don't like
match.
Saraya, but I think AEW has a problem, especially with champions, of people achieving their goal and then immediately just losing any interest they had. They've managed to not have that issue with MJF, so I'm hoping they don't have that issue with Saraya either. But.
The match was good when I was focusing with Sheeta and one of them at a time, like Britt or Tony, or when it was just focusing on one. But when they're trying to do all the multi spots, I felt it wasn't as good. But,
especially because this tends to be how we always get these types of matches at pay-per-views with the women's roster, because AEW likes to do just one women's match on most pay-per-views, and so it ends up being a 4-way to get as many women as possible, or a 6-person tag. It's an issue we've talked about, I think, in basically every show, and they haven't really gotten better at that. So we'll continue to talk about it until they do. All right, Saraya won the belt. She's now our champion and got a huge pop, a very huge audience reaction, which is cool to see. All right. After that, coffin match, Sting and Darby Allin versus Swerve Strickland and Christian Cage. Sting's the most badass 60-year-old man alive and continues to be the most badass 60-year-old man alive. I'm surprised he hasn't retired every single time. I think this match was very good.
Yeah, this match was sick. Originally this was supposed to be AR Fox there instead, but they had to do a last-minute change due to some personal stuff with Fox coming up, so they just decided to, turn him face. Let's put Christian Cage in there. I think that was probably for the best. And not that I don't like AR Fox, but I mean, Christian Cage just really is that much better.
And the current
and he's reliable
feud
too.
They have,
Christian Cage is going to put a good match on when he's on.
Yeah.
And the current feud they have on is pretty good as a result of this. So I feel like it worked out in the end.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's so many sick spots with Darby doing the things that he can do. I don't know how he does.
Also, they came out to Sting's old WCW theme as well from Metallica.
Seek and Destroy. Cool. Yeah. It was really fun to see that again, because again, it hasn't been since WCW was a thing where he actually came out to that. And I also just feel glad because when Sting went to the WWE, they're kind of being bit like, oh, this is how does it feel being in the front of the biggest crowd you've ever been in, Sting, consider, it just felt pretty bad,
Yeah,
to put down my man, and then just him being able to do this match still under his own terms and have such a big,
and in front of the biggest paid wrestling crowd.
It's just good to see.
Yeah, it goes full circle. Ends with Sting and Darby Allin defeating Strickland and Cage. Obviously, this is a coffin match. I think Sting and Darby have a very good record in coffin matches. It's basically Darby's signature match at this point. So, yeah, I really like the bit where Sting throws his bat to block the coffin from closing. I think it's a classic Sting being a badass and people reacting poorly to it. But yeah, that was another one of the highlights of the night, I think. Is a cool match thrown in that I didn't expect a ton from, but I was very pleasantly surprised by. All right. Moving on to another match that pleasantly surprised me, Chris Jericho versus Will Ospreay. I think we all knew Will Ospreay was going to do a good job in this match.
Probably, yeah.
But Jericho, has had a mixed record with singles matches in the past, and tends to be better in multi-man. But I think he was really solid here. I think this was a very solid showing and one of the better matches that he's done recently. He played himself in, of course, which was an experience, especially considering I think the audience didn't maybe react exactly the way that he wanted for a lot of it.
Yeah.
He holds the mic out for them to sing a line, but they clearly didn't know that they were supposed to do that at the time, and so it starts halfway through the line. It's very funny. Not a bad display, though. All right, any thoughts on this match before we move on?
I thought it was really. I thought this match was really good, and it shows us how good Ospreay is. Being able to get a match out of not that Jericho's bad, but I mean, if you're thinking about what should Ospreay do on this show, wouldn't have.
Especially because Ospreay is a very fast wrestler. He tends to wrestle very quick matches. That's why he's up against Kenny so often. And Jericho is not. Jericho's more of the traditional style of wrestling. And seeing, I think, Jericho pulled up to Ospreay's level in this match was very impressive. There's a sequence of counters in the middle of it where Jericho is throwing them out just as quick as Ospreay is, and it's extremely impressive.
Yeah. I think there's also, I think I said this to Brett, Jericho continues to surprise me with how mobile he is, and then he does something, and I'm surprised he's not dead. He did the one counter to the Stormbreaker perfectly. He got out of that in a way I wouldn't have imagined him doing.
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to completely just almost die, almost spikes himself on his own head doing the Os Cutter. He's trying to do that.
It was a good match. For the match that I think had probably the lowest stakes of the night, good one. Good refresher.
You see the match. The people go in there to see the match to see Ospreay, hometown person. Big UK star. Have a big match, biggest match of his career. That's all it really is.
She did win. Ospreay did take this home. Moving on to the Trios Championship with House of Black and the Acclaimed with Billy Gunn. I was worried for Billy Gunn's life at multiple points during this match. And, House of Black came in with a really, really sweet entrance that I think was a nice bit of respect towards Bray Wyatt, who passed in the week before this pay-per-view. Everyone was being very respectful of it, and I think this was a super good way to handle that situation in a way that it wasn't disruptive and was just a very nice nod with the lantern. And Wembley was doing Fireflies the entire night as well. They're doing the signature Bray Wyatt crowd move. So it's cool to see. I think the entire House of Black's gear here was super cool. The white gear. Love it. Every time House of Black shows up in new gear, I'm like, oh, they're so cool.
It's always good.
Yeah, I think this is a solid match. I don't think it's the best one that either of these tag teams have done in recent memory, but it was not at all bad. Just
badass Billy Gunn.
Yeah, badass Billy Gunn. Brody King throwing people around as always. Good time. All right.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this match in specific before we move on? Nope. All
Nice
right.
to see.
Solid.
Now it's time to talk about the big one, the AEW World Championship match. Adam Cole versus MJF, who had that same match earlier this night, a tag team match against Aussie Open. So they're not fresh, either one of them, going into this match. And I think this was another really good. MJF and Adam Cole are both very good at doing matches that are storytelling heavy.
Yeah.
And this very much fit into that lens or that archetype of matches. Neither one of them is a slow wrestler in particular, but they were both very good at having good moments here and really playing up the whole friendship thing. And I think MJF might have been the face here, which is a weird thing to think about.
You just before this whole thing, you would never even think that it would be possible, but here we are. The whole the match is full of I feel like whenever MJF has a match, he commands the pace as just here's a cool series of spots and counters for a solid 5 minutes, and then it slows down for a sec, and then something else happens, and then we go back and do a crazy sequence back and forth or whatever. But this time, instead of it being it's always something different. It's always him trying to find some way to cheat while the ref isn't looking, or something else like that. But now it's him debating whether or not the move that he's going to do against his friend Adam Cole would be too much, and then hesitating, and then not doing it.
And then Adam Cole does it.
But Adam Cole does it,
exactly.
Yeah. It's just playing that for the whole match was, it was really solid. I feel like this is one of those things where you don't even have to enjoy wrestling to like it, because it's just the storytelling is so good.
And I believe you could put this in front of someone who had none of the background of Better Than You, Bebe, and they would have understood what was going on.
Definitely.
Just because of the facial expressions of both of these wrestlers. Adam Cole and MJF did a masterful job of emoting in a way that makes it's super clear what they're both feeling the entire time. And I think that's a skill that a lot of wrestlers lack and often don't need. It's not a thing that you tend to see used very often in the mid-card, but at the top of the card with people like MJF, Adam Cole, Hangman, Kenny, that's a thing that they all do in all of their matches. And I think that's really something that separates people here, is
for sure,
seeing that amount of control, especially MJF. MJF is the absolute master of this. And yeah, I think the false finish here was very good as well.
Oh yeah, that's such a good callback. The whole start of everything with the draw that it came to. And again, MJF saying, no, we're not doing 5 more minutes. We're finishing this match when there's only one of us standing, and the crowd goes crazy.
Especially because you can tell everyone believed MJF was just going to be a no.
It's they could spin this somewhere.
You can tell he's a little bit afraid at that time because he's doing the facial expression thing, and then he leads into, we're doing as long as it takes, and it's great. It's a great lead up to this, especially because he then tries to get a roll up pin.
Of course, immediately.
Can't get too far away from the sneaky moves, which doesn't work, which I think was the right call. It would have been really weird if they did that whole, this is going to go as long as it takes to roll up.
It would have gone a completely different way.
Yeah, that would have been the comedy ending route. But
yeah,
they went more serious with it, and I think a great way. This was a super strong main event.
Then the whole stuff with Roderick Strong too.
Yep.
Being out there.
Good old Roddy.
Trying to beg Adam to betray his best friend. Poor Roddy.
His real best friend.
Which didn't work, by the way. Adam and MJF are still a tag team post this. Neither one betrayed each other, but MJF did retain. And they did a long post-match bit, too, that I think was very good. It was basically a soap opera.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it was very entertaining. It was very cool, and there was a big hug at the end. I'm always a sucker for the big wrestling hug, especially when it's between two people that you would never expect to do it.
Of course, yeah.
Right. Any other thoughts on this match?
It was very good, and it was, I was surprised kind of initially that they're continuing it, but I'm excited to see what the rest of Better Than You Baby is going to bring to the table.
I want your bet right now, Ryan. Do they break up by betraying each other, or is it going to be something else?
I think it's going to be something else.
I think they're beyond now. That was the test of friendship, and they passed, and it's going to be something else. I think I'm with you. I think that's what I want to see now. Yeah, I think overall this entire show was really good. All In was a very, very solid pay-per-view, and I think at the time, Brett, you and I had been like, oh, this is maybe one of the best ones they've done in a while. Then they followed it up with All Out.
Only to be upstaged by themselves.
Upstaged themselves a week later. Which, of course, not taking anything away from All In, it was a great show, but All Out was very, very good.
Yeah, just because, because with like 2 pay-per-views where there's so many things worth talking about, we're gonna have to speed through a lot of this, but this is what I was talking about at the beginning, where I really do think that All Out was like, the controversy with Punk happened. This show is in Chicago. Tony immediately came out and like apologized, said everything that he had to. But at the end of the day, like you have a freaking pay-per-view that people are paying extra for all over the world to watch, like at full price. You could be playing like Armored Core or Starfield or watch this pay-per-view at its full pay-per-view price. And all of a sudden, our guy isn't going to be there anymore in his hometown. What the hell's going on here? So I something must have happened, and I was talking about this with Ryan also. Something must have happened backstage where they were like, okay, bad shit just happened. We need to keep everybody watching with us. Every single person wrestling tonight has to be like 11 out of 10. And I don't think there is a single, even like match on this card.
Even the matches that we expected to be bathroom matches were incredible.
Yeah, there was not a single bathroom match. I think this is probably the first time this has happened, because every time we talk about one of these shows, there's always like, whether it's like unfortunately it usually ends up being the women's match, or like the Jericho match that is like strangely right before the main event, because of course it is, because it's Jericho. There was not a bathroom match during this. It was like insanity the whole way through.
Yeah, and the crowd was super hot the entire time. I think Chicago, there's a reason they go back to Chicago. That crowd is always very hot. I think it's just very good to see that they were still hot. There were boos for people that you probably wouldn't normally expect boos for.
Yeah, and they got drowned out pretty fast, though.
Yeah, that being the worst thing to come out of the CM Punk situation, I think is probably the best you could hope for.
Yeah,
for sure, yeah.
Totally.
All right. Starting in our first match is the over-budget Battle Royal, where the gimmick is the winner gets to give to the charity of their choice $50,000. Very solid match. I was very happy to see Dalton Castle again.
Of course, always.
Every time that man's in a match, it's great. But of course, the only, I would say, frontliner here was really Adam Page, who ends up winning and giving it to the Chicago Education Fund. Is that what it was?
Yeah,
something with schools, yeah.
Some Chicago school thing.
Which sense.
Tracks a lot because he was a teacher. So, yeah, solid match. I'm happy this was in 0 hour, because I think last time they did an overflowing 0 hour show, I was like, they should just put the Battle Royal in 0 hour so we don't have to sit through 20 minutes of entrances.
Yes.
And they did.
And they learned.
They learned the thing, and they put it in the pre-show, which was a great pre-show match. Next up, we had Shida, Sky Blue, and Willow Nightingale against Mercedes Martinez, Diamante, and Athena. Was another really solid tag match.
Genuinely, yeah.
Yep. Especially with Sky Blue and Diamante, who don't often get even near the pre-shows of pay-per-views.
Yeah, Diamante is more of a Ring of Honor thing, and Sky Blue is just very like, haha, funny, green. But I like, for being new, I think by this point Sky Blue is getting to be a pretty solid competitor.
For sure.
And I would think and hope, dear God, if I was Tony Khan, to book her more often over some of the women's competitors that we have seen too much of. Because
she's one of the few baby faces in the women's division that people are actually getting behind.
Yeah, and this is you need your Chicagoan citizen. You got Sky Blue, super over. I honestly, I liked this match more than the women's championship match that happened in Wembley. To be honest with you,
no, I
because
fully
everybody
agree.
here's they just work so much better together. Nobody was like a straggler really. Like everyone was able to do their own thing. It was just really good.
I think a lot of people had brought up that this is just a weird combo of people to have, and I kind of disagree with that.
I think
but I get the sentiment because they don't really have a lot of relationship to each other in terms of having wrestled in the past together, but Sheeta, Sky Blue, and Willow are three of the most well thought of baby faces in AEW right now. And then Martinez, Diamante, and Athena. Athena's, I think, the oddball here of not cleanly fitting in as a heel.
Because that's the thing is Chris had some stuff recently on Collision. That's where Mercedes started to really pop up again, and Diamante as well. So they're familiar with each other. Sky and Willow tag a lot. I get they wanted to put Hikaru on the card. She works well with anyone. And then, Athena's just kind of like the rogue one out of all of them. And it was supposed to be, if you saw her in the match wearing her Minion shirt, it was supposed to be Billy Starks would have had a match against Athena on the card. Billy was still injured, though, so that's why she was just kind of on the outside. And it may be weird considering, like, because I haven't been keeping up with Ring of Honor. I actually had to go back after the show and see what was going on. And apparently, like, Billy and Athena are a thing. They're like actually tagging together almost, because Billy was getting beat up by, I forgot who. I don't remember. But then Athena came out for the save, and then Athena made her minion.
This makes sense. This works.
Having not watched any Ring of Honor makes perfect sense.
Of course.
And my only critique is, God, please, Tony, have Athena be on your shows besides Ring of Honor more.
Yeah.
She is hands down the best women's wrestler, in my opinion, that they have on
especially
that roster.
Because people like her. Like that's
a consistent
she's over issue with the women's division is having heels that people actually like to some degree, and Athena fits that perfectly.
The match her and Willow had at Death Before Dishonor was so good. It was so good.
Yeah.
And I just want more Athena besides having to watch it only in Ring of Honor. She should be everywhere.
And I really want to see a singles match between Serena Deeb and Athena at some point.
Where is Serena Deeb?
I think she is like out on leave or something. I'd look that up. She's either out on leave or injured, but yeah, she's still with AEW, just out.
I hope so. She's really good.
Yeah, she's an excellent wrestler, and I feel like her and Athena could do a incredibly good match. So Sheeta, Blue, and Nightingale win this match, and that's our point to move on to the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass versus Jarrett Lethal and Satnam Singh. This match felt a little weird. Still good.
Dennis Rodman is the worm. That's all I have to say about this match.
Yes. He is the worm.
Here.
He's the worm. I don't know. They wanted to have a match where they could have Dennis Rodman come out, I guess.
It was funny. It was very funny.
You know, Lethal and Jarrett, despite Jarrett being how old? Like in his 60s, right? Jarrett's got to be in his 60s now. 56 now. Yeah, I'm being mean to him.
That's not far off though.
He's still really solid despite his age. Jay Lethal's always solid. Satnam is there to be a big guy, and then the Acclaimed are over. It is what it is. It was fun. Definitely, like this was the I would say a quintessential pre-show match. But,
definitely.
Yeah. I can't remember anything that happened.
Yeah,
But
I
I
think
do
that's a fair way to put
remember.
it.
I remember seeing Dennis Rodman hit one of them with the guitar, and then he kept on holding onto the guitar instead of throwing it away. And the ref.
Yeah, he was
seeing
also
it.
in the ring the whole time.
Yeah, he was just like A posing in the corner.
Just like never got out of the ring, which is really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, funny match. That the Acclaimed retained their championship in. Moving on to Better Than You Bebe versus the Dark Order for the ROH tag titles. This is Silver and Reynolds. It's Cole and MJF. I think this was a really, really fun match.
This kicked ass. This,
I think I like seeing the Dark Order, and I like seeing them against MJF and Adam Cole more than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that Dark Order are evil again.
Yeah.
Thank God.
The fact that they're the heels in this match is just weird to think about.
I know, it's so weird, but it worked so well because like even I feel like they're at a good balance now where like they could still they're allowed to be silly. They can be a little silly, and like the crowd is still like everybody still loves them. But now they get to be mean again. They get to steal moves and break rules and stuff. And you take them seriously.
Sportsmanship chants make me lose my mind.
Yeah, this there's a lot of good chants here. Dark Order really good at being heels, and it makes sense that MJF got taken out because of his neck. That Adam Cole himself messed up. Good job, Adam. It was they played it right into with exactly as soon as I saw MJF get pulled up. I knew it was gonna happen, but it was still good.
The build up for that never fails.
Yeah, the crowd reacted great to MJF coming back like a big baby face that he is now.
Yep.
After Dark Order just ripping apart Adam Cole, even using the double clothesline themselves. It was
How dare they?
It was good.
Yeah, really solid tag match. And I think this is just proving why MJF and Adam Cole is sticking around for longer, because they work really, really startlingly well together.
Yeah, and not only that, not only does it prove that MJF and Adam Cole are able to last however longer they need to, keep the story alive, but this is also like, yeah, Tony, you kind of forgot about this other team that is extremely capable and like really like pay-per-view quality for the last like 2 or so years or something. The Dark Order is really, really good. And they just have to be in the middle of a story that's going to put them in the middle of more big matches. But they very, like, super clearly, like, yes, do they have, like, similar spots that they do always? Like, yeah, but they're always really good. And the things that they throw in between all of them to mix things up are also really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna agree with you. I was gonna say as well. I know you were watching Collision with me last night, Brett. Have you guys seen hopefully some of those packages that they're doing for the group known as the Righteous? There's the guy Vincent, Dutch, and Stu Grayson is with them.
Yes.
So Dark Order. It's weird to see them be evil now in a sense, because it feels like kind of completely against what was going on with what they were doing in Ring of Honor at the time. So Dark Order fought them at Death Before Dishonor in a really good match. It was a really good hardcore match. And the main reason was because Stu was like, yeah, you guys aren't the Dark Order that I'm used to anymore. That's why I'm with these guys. Now it's just kind of weird to see the Dark Order going back there where they are.
Stu's still not with them again.
Yeah, Stu's going to be with the other guys. But that's alright. The Righteous are pretty alright.
They're all righteous.
Moving on to Samoa Joe versus Shane Taylor for the ROH. Yeah.
Before we get into that, there's something that happened before the match.
The TV bet?
True. The bump heard around the world.
Yeah, so MJF was leaving. Samoa Joe is deciding, I'm the champion, I'm coming out now. And he shoved MJF in a very similar way that happened at NXT Brooklyn 2, where
it's funny,
MJF
that's one of the few WWE callbacks that I have personally witnessed.
Yeah. So at that show, Joe was the NXT champion. MJF was still starting off in his career. And all companies do this where they just kind of have wrestlers as like bodies, as like security guards or whatever.
Yeah.
MJF was a security guard there, and Joe pushed him the same exact way he did that. But MJF, much different person he is now than he was back then. He got fired up, went into the ring after him, and there had to be a pull apart, and it was sick to see. I love seeing stuff like that happens like between matches and stuff. Just makes it flow.
Which I assume is going to
better.
lead into a title feud for
Absolutely,
the championship, for sure.
We're almost there, pretty much.
And I do wonder if maybe Joe takes it when it does happen.
I think you're discrediting Roderick Strong.
You're forgetting someone.
Forgetting Roderick Strong, yeah. All right. So Shane Taylor and Joe went on to have a really good match.
Yeah, it was good.
I'm a fan of big men slapping meat, so
yeah, that's
I'm
all
easily
it was.
Satisfied.
Yeah, it was just a good match,
All right,
that's it.
Moving on, because we have a lot to still talk about. Luchasaurus versus Darby Allin for the TNT title. This was a surprisingly brutal match, considering Luchasaurus can throw Darby a lot further than you'd expect. Darby could be thrown.
And somehow Darby still lives.
And somehow he hasn't broken every bone in his body. Nick Wayne was also at ringside for this, which I don't remember when these two became buddy-buddy. I guess they are now.
I don't know.
The random appearance of Nick Wayne. Anybody else?
Well, Nick and Darby are tight because of their, the whole thing of them being in Washington together.
Yeah.
Darby, was friends with his dad and everything.
Trained together and stuff.
And then, there's the whole dissension between him and his father not being the best terms before he died, and Wayne not being too happy that he forgave A.R. Fox so quickly. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he did come out, because he also was featured with what happened on Collision as well. Also came out there. But they're building something towards Darby, Nick Wayne, and A.R. Fox, which may bubble over in 3 weeks from now at Wrestle Dream in Washington.
I look forward to it. Seeing Darby with someone aside from Sting, I think, will be refreshing. So
yes,
as much as I do love the combo and think that they still have a lot of mileage in that, but all right. Any particular thoughts about this match? Luchasaurus, I would say, very clearly won this one.
I think this was his best singles match that he's had.
For sure, yeah.
Him spamming all those pile drivers at the end was sick. I really like the one spot too, where Darby was going to try to go for the coffin drop, but then Christian on the outside was trying to threaten Nick Wayne. I think that was a really good spot.
Yep. So tombstones, they get me, and Darby getting tombstoned is appropriate. So
yes,
big fan of it. All right. Moving on to, my match of the night. Miro and Powerhouse Hobbs, just because this is the definition of meaty men slapping meat.
Yes.
Especially considering there was a Meat Forever chant.
Yes, which is awesome.
Match, which is everything that I've ever wanted. I think this was extremely good. We'll get to the ending at the end of it, but yeah, I love any time that you get two big men that throw each other together. It's great. Especially because Miro is built like a brick shithouse in a way that I think nobody else is. It's great. And Powerhouse Hobbs has the perfect snarl. He does that snarl face so much, and it's so good. This is exactly what you would expect it to be. It's two big men doing lariats at each other for a while. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
I think you go first.
I was just gonna say I like how constantly surprised I am with Hobbs because he's really solid. I feel like he's like people don't really tend to put him in conversation for like most like incredible newish guy or dude who
Which they
hasn't
absolutely
been wrestling
should.
for
He's
absolutely yeah because he's great. I mean this is clear by this point. It doesn't really matter who he's up against. My man can put on a solid match.
I was gonna say there's a certain part during this match where it feels like, they're first starting off getting like warmed up against each other, and then it just kind of feels like there's like a I don't know if it's due to the most likely due to the crowd, but it feels like there's like a light switch that flipped, and they started like going at each other like a G1 match. Like just
He does based.
they just like start
Yeah.
just like beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah. And the chants are going along with it too. It
Yeah.
was super, super good.
I will never forget the sound of meat forever.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a Chicago moment, truly.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Let's talk about the end of this. So Miro makes Hobbs tap. They do the classic handshake betrayal where Hobbs attacks Miro. And then surprising music comes on and CJ Perry walks out.
Hot and flexible.
Hot and
I
flexible
guess.
to, I think, a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I remember watching this and I heard Ryan go, "Oh no!" But it was worth it because it was really
Absolutely.
funny. She comes down to the ring to help Miro out. They whatever they hit Hobbs with the chair, and the Miro you expect. Oh my God, my lovely wife of mine, you are here in the same company with me now. Finally, there's no weirdness about where people think where you're gonna go. This is great. Nope. Miro stomps away after looking at her disapprovingly, gets to the top of the ramp, and screams, "You're not real!" before leaving. And that's the end of that interaction,
Brett,
and I could not
I've
have
been
asked for anything
stunned.
better.
So many people seem to have not understood what this is. This is them doing a Miro delusion arc. I love
Yes,
it
this is
so
him. He's
much.
so obsessed with his god, just like putting distractions in his way that he just thinks that this is another one of those, and that you whatever. Yeah, I'm not gonna let you distract me. You
Yeah.
faker. I'm going to go win more. It's just
And I think this
absolute
is the best thing
insanity.
they could have done for both CJ Perry and Miro, considering Perry just cut another promo that was incredible. That was like, well, now I'm going to be the best manager there is. And so, presumably not to Miro. So I'm very excited to see where that story leads as well. Yeah, I think this is just really, really solid and big meaty men slapping meat. That's my
Yes.
ending note. All right. Moving on to Chris Statlander and Ruby Soho. This was a match that I think a lot of people would have expected to be the bathroom match, but was very, very good.
Super, super good, dude.
Statlander's back in full form, and when Ruby gets the opportunity to go, she goes.
Seriously, dude, the final, like, the last, like, 5 minutes of this match, like, that sequence that Ruby pulls on Stat is like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is why she's here. She
Yeah.
hasn't been able to do this in so long, but she's so fucking good
Because she keeps
when
getting
she's
sent
not
into like
being held
tag
back.
matches and like the weird outcast stuff, but at least here she got to
Yeah.
actually do a solo match that was very good.
Exactly. Man. That is, yeah, again, another women's match, and this one is for a belt that I think is more solid than the one at Wembley, and I just like, even though the weird run-in with Toni Storm just like appears to just be having the time of her life and just not caring at all. Like that is so much more interesting to me than anything that I've seen Toni Storm do. I think maybe ever, because I have not seen too many things from her.
She
But
epitomized the "this is my moment" attitude.
it's
Yeah.
For a
literally,
while.
yeah.
And now she is
But now,
so far
like,
away from that it's working great.
yeah. And like I'm sure I hate to beat down on other people in the locker room, but it's just like this is how you put on a women's match, because it's just they're both so highly skilled, and both of them also are capable of selling each other's moves super well. Brit. But like they're beating the crap out of each other. Stat like still feels like a super solid champ. And Ruby, one of these days, man. One of these days, she's gonna
also
get
had
gold. It's gonna be
Zoolander
great.
gear on, which was a
Yes,
pretty impressive.
pretty awesome.
Pretty funny.
It's always fun to look at the gear inspirations. But yeah, super solid. Ends with some more wackadoo shenanigans from Tony Storm and Soraya. So Statlander retains because of Tony Storm popping out front of the ring.
Looks like Chris is going to be going up against Jade next.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that.
Surprisingly, that's going to be good. Even if it is a rematch, it was barely a match in the first place.
Yeah,
so
it was. She ran out and won the title in one move. Calling that a match is generous.
Listen, I get Jade done with this, the rematch or whatever, and then just have her start either going into actual singles feuds with somebody, or maybe have her feud with, like, not saying that she should win, but have her do more, because they put a lot of character into her out of all the other women. So
yeah,
seriously,
I think her and Athena would be sick again to see, because they had a really good match.
Yeah, especially now that they're kind of unbound from the Jade needs to win every match she's in.
Yes, definitely.
Stipulations, that's always a super hard thing to walk the line with, and I think it tends to turn out worse at the end of it than... I think the only time that has ever worked really well was with Asuka and NXT, because there was somewhere else for Asuka to go afterwards. She never actually had to lose because she could move up to the main roster. But for AEW, the TBS championship, you've got to lose it at some point. Like, especially considering it was meant to be like the fighting championship. Having it on one person that's just on an unbroken streak for over a year is... It gets stale after a while.
Yeah.
No knocks against Jade, though, because I think she's become a phenomenal wrestler. All right. Moving on to Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks, the surprise match.
This was my match of the night.
Very good.
Blame you.
This match was everything I wanted. I was so happy to see Danielson back. The way that they built up the match again, because it was supposed to be Punk in this match, and we were wondering who could it be, and then just seeing Danielson back and surprisingly early. And just it looks like he wasn't off a day, and he put over Starks after the match too for the press conference, and he said Starks pretty much had to carry me through that. If you watch back the match, I actually did not use my bad arm one time at all. I was all just using
especially
because
I think that just shows the professionalism of Danielson.
Exactly, and I did not notice that until he said that. It was just crazy.
Yeah, because he's an incredible wrestler. Maybe the best on the roster. Like, he's up in the contention with Kenny and very, very limited company of like maybe the best wrestler. And he hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities to show that in big singles matches, especially gimmick matches, in a while. But this being a strap match and being against Ricky Starks, who you'd think would be an odd call up, but Ricky has never disappointed in any match that he's really been in. He's always super solid. The crowd likes him. He just doesn't often get the chance to shine the way that a lot of the other top carders do.
This match did more for Ricky than the match with Jericho did. 100%.
And I believe it did more than a match with Punk would have done, for sure.
Exactly.
Absolutely. By a country mile.
Just how brutal Ricky was able to be with it, and then how much punishment he was able to take too from Danielson just beating the shit out of him.
I'm just imagining if Punk was in this match, because I can imagine that this probably would have been fine with Punk in the match. Like, the match itself would have been fine, but the media scrum. I can't imagine him doing what Danielson did and complimenting his opponent and everything. And lifting Ricky up, which I think is really important, because Danielson has an amount of respect that very few people have. And so if he says someone's good, people believe him. And so he says Ricky's good. Like, it's a made wrestler, basically.
I love how terrible Steamboat was on commentary, and when he was out there, it was still throw probably one of the best worked punches and chops that I've seen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Guy who's 70 years old when he's beating the shit out of Big
Crazy.
Bill. That it was just watching that match was just it was brutal. It was brutal than like a lot of like hardcore matches because like you could just see all the punishment that they were taking like actively.
I'm also just a big fan of the bit of a commentator going, "I've seen enough," and then taking the headset off and running up to the
Super
stage.
based.
Yeah.
Super
Love it every time it
based.
happens. Not super
And also,
often,
like,
but
when the part that sticks out to me most in memory is when Danielson has Ricky tied up, hanging upside down in the corner, and goes for the first front facing whip with the strap. That
Right in the mouth.
yeah, like just right straight down the middle of like his whole body, and like wraps around the side of his jaw a little bit, and the sound that makes, like, oh
Yeah.
my god, like it was very clear that like whatever level of like Discord style mic suppression the mics have, or like all the other ones after were like kind of quieter, there just wasn't like a noise that was that loud to hit it before, so it wasn't in full force yet, and just the crisp thwack of that was like, oh my god. I don't know how you can keep going after that, but he did it like 20 more times, and it was awesome. It was so sick.
yeah. I don't know. I think the strap and chain gimmicks are really, really hard to do well.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they did it this well is incredibly impressive. Yeah, I think it was really, really a phenomenal match. Final Countdown got used again, too. Add another 10,000 onto that tally for Tony. And
Yep.
yeah, the strap match is just a concerning match type that I think was pulled off very well here. So, very happy to see how well this went. Danielson, of course, takes this home. Can't have him losing to Ricky Starks. Come on.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe someday.
Imagine
It
the
does look
callback
like
in 5 years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, anything else on this match?
Love
Nope.
that.
Moving on to Eddie Kingston and Shibata versus the Blackpool Combat Club. Love it every time we see Shibata. Just with the giant The Wrestler behind him.
Yeah, because I mean, like, who else? Really, who else are you going to call The Wrestler? He's
I'm also
so
just a huge fan
based.
of the gimmick of walking out with like the towel over your shoulders,
Never fails.
looking like a boxer, and so few people in AEW do it. But Shibata has done it every time he shows up. It's one of his things, and it makes him look like he's a Yakuza character, even though I think he is a Yakuza character. So
probably, I wouldn't
he's
be
in one of them. Yeah, it's super cool. Claudio and Yuta also put on a good showing here.
Do not forget about Eddie. This straight up, I think there's a close contender right immediately after this, and obviously Danielson and Ricky are no slouch either. But this was my match of the night. I have become big fans of all four people in it, and just like by this point, anytime that I hear Eddie is going to be involved in something, anytime I hear Shibata is going to be involved in something, I'm there. I have astral projected to that location, and my spirit is watching the match live. And on a team together, I'm there. I don't even care about anything else. I'm there to watch it. And it did not disappoint. I mean, they're just like Eddie being the guy where Tony can just be like, well, I mean, people love Shibata. I think by this point, most people have been turned on to him and like him more than enough. But anytime it's like, oh, well, we got this, Japanese wrestler who wrestles in some amount of a classic style, we'll just throw Eddie in the mix somewhere, and people will be super hyped up no matter what, because Eddie just has that power about him.
Eddie's kind of like
somehow.
just throwing a loose bear into the ring and seeing what
Yes.
happens. He's let loose. Or sometimes he's just sitting there eating some honey, and then sometimes he whips around and does double back fists to two people in a row immediately, and it looks gnarly. Yeah, big fan of everyone in this match. Yuta, every time Yuta's in a match, he is very impressive, and I'm just
he goes crazy.
super glad to see that he's getting the spotlight coming back from like when he was a solo wrestler in the Best Friends, who was made fun of, to now is, I think, just super cool progression for him. Yeah, solid match. Any other thoughts?
There's that one spot where Shibata has Yuta in a hold with his legs, and he just keeps taking strikes from Claudio and just does not move, and then uses that as an opportunity to put Claudio also into another hold with the top half of his body, and Claudio decides to break it by putting Yuta in serious pain more than anybody else, and then goes back to his corner. And just that, like that's they've cemented Yuta as just being like the silly little punching bag for even the Blackpool Combat Club, but him also being really good as this like the rat creature of the tag team, where he'll just like sneak in and do one crazy thing and then run back out, and that's it. Like it's just such a cool dynamic, and again, anytime Eddie is there to do his special brand of overacting, it almost like heightens the acting ability of everybody else in the ring around him, because they're just forced to compete with mastery. Anywhere that this story is going to go, which I think it's Eddie versus Claudio for both of their respective belts.
Yeah,
very soon. I forget exactly when, but I can't wait for that.
Yeah, great match with a good progression going forward for matches to happen. Which we always love to see. And next, I lied earlier. Now we're to my actual match of the night.
This is my up and coming,
Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita. My lord. This felt like taking old Japan Kenny and throwing him into a match with himself.
Yeah, it's kind of screwed up. How Konosuke can just like be another guy.
And I think it's really impressive. They're really playing up the Don Callis angle here in a way that I think is starting to work. I wasn't grabbed by it the first time, like right after the betrayal happened, that they were gonna go somewhere with it. But I think they've nailed onto something with Takeshita being Don Callis' new protege, because people have like made the Kenny comparison so often. And I think they're hyper aware of that, and so they're using that to make this more impactful. Yeah, I really, really like this one.
Yeah, and Kenny coming out in the gear, parodying his like old school gear, also I feel like quadruples down into that like mirrored storytelling of Kenny facing a younger version of himself that maybe suplexes a little bit more. Yeah, there's also in another example, like we talked about earlier, of making a botch work, kind of, where like not even like 2 minutes into the match or something, like Kenny almost dies and like lands on like the very top of his spine, and like I just remembered just my stomach sinking to my feet watching that for the first time, because I was sure that something was wrong, and he just kept going after that and was like, oh, geez, that was crazy. Anyway, let's just keep going. And typical of the AEW commentating crew, they spun it in some like, oh, well, very clearly Kenny's off his game because this is, and just, all right, I believe it. I'm in now. I'm back. But not a slip up after that first little beginning section for like the rest of the match. Both of these guys are, I don't think it's possible for Kenny to not be at the top of his game. He was wrestling with Vertigo for like a year, and most people couldn't really tell too much.
I am a massive fan of a good Hurricane Rana or a Poison Rana, and these two never disappoint. It's great. Incredibly solid match with all of the classic Kenny moves thrown in, with the surprising upset at the end that I think is really worth mentioning, because Takeshita won this match.
Yeah.
And pretty cleanly, too. There was like a screwdriver bit, but it didn't get used. So, I don't know. I think this is probably Takeshita's big day. You know?
Yes. Totally.
As a skyrocket to fame after beating Kenny Omega. And I am very happy about that. I think Omega does often pull the I'm going to lose the big match card more than other top carders are often willing to, but here it particularly matters. Just I think because of all the comparisons going on, and I'm really excited to see where they take it.
Yeah,
because this is another match of Kenny losing to someone that has Don Callis at their side, so super curious to see where that's gonna go.
My 5 to 10 year from now dream match plan is, and I think I've said this before at some point on another episode, but we have two people now that are said to be filling the shoes of Kenny Omega, and I need to see Konosuke and Will Ospreay fight each other one-on-one in some crazy, absolutely ball-bustingly insane match. Somehow Kenny may or may not be involved along the way. He definitely should be, but that is going to go absolutely crazy because it's so clear that they're both they both have different parts of Kenny just so deeply ingrained into their moveset and the way they wrestle.
Yeah.
I need that match at some point, and it's got to happen. If Tony's still booking by that point,
give me the
he
angle.
knows it's got to happen.
Give me the angle of Kenny's old. He's retired from in-ring for the most part, but he's a manager, all right? And one of these two needs him as the manager, and it's going to be all about who can get Kenny in their corner for the big match.
Kenny needs a son.
Yeah, Kenny needs a son, and then he needs to pass on the one-winged angel, I think that's what needs.
Yeah, one of them has to take it.
Is the one-winged angel gets passed down as a sacred relic of wrestling. With all of its protected status intact. All right, moving on from that match, very good, to Bullet Club Gold versus Young Bucks and FTR. I think another match that we all wanted to talk about a bit. This was another pretty impressive match.
Insane good.
Compared to what I was expecting. Because I was expecting a lot from this lineup of people, and they surpassed those expectations. So
I was just, it just shows, how, because I want to talk about it for a couple of reasons. I think the Gun Club, as we said earlier, is so much better now that they have the guidance of Juice and Jay with them. I think it was a missing thing, and I think it's all coming together for them now. I loved all the spots that the Bucks and the FTR did together. Again, like how I was saying earlier with the other match, this time they're doing each other's finishers, but with the other person. And that was really fun to see. But
can they coexist?
And the other thing that I wanted to mention besides that part is Crowdy was kind of crazy, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. I was expecting it to be worse. I was expecting it to just be full of booze the whole time. As whenever Don Callis gets into the ring, people have shown that they can boo so loud that you just cannot even pay attention to anything else or hear what anyone's saying or anything like that. But luckily, it was I think any time that someone started a CM Punk chant, they were just
got drowned out.
Yeah, vocally destroyed. People had signs out. I think all disparaging Punk in varying levels of maturity and wordsmithery. But I think if you're gonna be the Bucks and you're gonna be chanting along with the fuck CM Punk chants with the crowd, I think now is absolutely the time. Whereas before it's are you really want to poke that lion in the cage right now? Okay, but now what are they gonna do? Not
Yeah. It was just super cool to see FTR and Bucks team together too. This is always, fun to see, and I really wonder what Bullet Club Gold is going to be doing next.
Yeah, I'm super curious. They didn't lean into the reason I joked with the can they coexist thing is because they built that up a little bit last pay-per-view at All In, with the animosity between the two. This time that we didn't have anything funky with that. They just worked really well together. So I kind of hope that continues and we get to see a side of these two tag teams being a little bit more on each other's side. They're very good together. All right. Any other thoughts on this tag match? Love to see other people joining in on the super kicks.
Of course.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. It was
Moving
good the whole way
on
through.
to our headliner match. Finally, Orange Cassidy gets to headline a pay-per-view. And it was extremely good. And I lied again. This is actually my match of the night.
See, that's what you can't like that easily pick. You could say anything on the whole card almost, and I wouldn't be like, dude, cut really that one. Like almost everything, including this next match, it's all just like they just went insane. I don't know how they did it. They better keep it up.
I think this is really
expect
what
them to
cemented
now.
Orange Cassidy as the haha funny deathmatch wrestler. Which is really funny. Yeah, I think this is one of the best singles matches that Cassidy's had in a while, and that's saying a lot because he tends to have extremely good singles matches. So I don't know. I did not expect the combination of Moxley and Orange Cassidy to work this well, but it absolutely did. Cassidy fully looked like he is bleeding too much. That's funny.
Yeah, that like just the like because you could see the crimson mass that he has just from like the blood coming out, but you could see the actual like crater of the cut itself is just pure red, and it was huge on his forehead. That looked like it didn't really end up mattering because he still wrestled just as well as he always does. But like, oh, absolutely, dude. There's no way it didn't. It like, oh my god.
Yeah. Super good match though. Legitimately concerned for both of their safety, which is not a uncommon thought when Moxley is in a match with anyone. So not surprising, but I think they played really well off of all the Moxley's reactions to Orange Cassidy's typical shenanigans, and then Cassidy's reaction to, these aren't working as well as they could. I need to get a little bit more serious, and then seeing the mindset change.
Yeah, Orange like taking it seriously with the kicks at the end after trying to goad him in with it was really sick to see.
Yeah, this is like him really trying to defend this title. He's had it for a while. This is his probably hardest challenger. So big title defense moment, and he's pulling out all the stops. I really, really love the finish to this match of Cassidy kicking out of a Death Rider.
Dude.
First of all, which is not a thing that happens very much. And then clearly too injured to continue wrestling. Like, super clearly. Flips the double birds.
Yup.
and then
and
just
immediately
loses the
eats it. Yeah,
immediately
that
eats
is
it
like
with the feet straight in the air Death Rider. That looks like he died.
My other favorite part about this too is after kicking out, you can see Mox praying that Orange stays down. Like you can see him like put his hands up and look up.
Well, especially because you could tell after this that Mox is like being pushed to the limit from right before when Mox had like lifted the padding off of the floor during a part of the match, and then immediately gets countered into a I forget the move name, but
the beach break on the outside.
Fully on his back on the concrete, and the sound was not good. It was a bad sound. That was a nasty move, and I'm glad they didn't slam Orange Cassidy's head into the concrete, but that was a full force beach blast beach break into concrete, and man, that's a move to take.
I do, because when was the last time that Mox had to pray in the corner, Ryan? Because that was a thing that he did when he was fighting someone for a little bit, and I forget who it was.
Was it Omega?
I feel like it was a like a younger or older guy that he was like actually afraid of injuring or whatever. Because I remember like that happened. Maybe. Either that or maybe it was Yuta when he was
Yuta.
Because he was like, at the end of the day, I am a big brawly bad guy. I'm here to fight people. I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to fight you, and if you bleed, that's a twisted kind of us having some manly bonding together. And I like just that because the whole build up for this match where the last thing Orange did before the match even happened, the other night before, he picked up the mic, which like, okay, Orange Cassidy's gonna talk, and he just gave like the best promo that you could ever hope from him in his like whole career up to this point. Like at least in terms of like being serious, where he's just like, yeah, this belt is like it symbolizes me like shaking off everybody telling me that I'm too small or too short or too skinny to do whatever. Look at me now. I've been defending this for so long or whatever, and that's like the exact kind of like it's the same kind of thing where like Mox is like, oh well, I'm fighting this person. He's young. He's small. I don't actually want to kill him. So please God let him stay down so I don't have to do even worse things to him, which he did like once or twice before a while ago. But like that. My God, my dad is a massive Orange Cassidy fan, and he's been him for I think 2 Halloweens in a row. With the exact same backpack and sneakers and all the denim and sunglasses and shirt and everything. And he was a little misty eyed when the match ended, but he went down like a goddamn hero. So I wouldn't have had it any other way. That shit was badass.
Yeah, that was super impressive. I think it's the right time too for Orange Cassidy to
Definitely, yeah.
lose the championship because he's been defending it for a while. Let's give someone else a chance. And Moxley, probably a good person to give a chance. So
For sure.
I'm excited to see where we go with this. Yeah. So CM Punk is out. All Out went fine,
Woo!
and I would say maybe better than fine. Maybe it was. I think the ringer they called in to replace Punk, Danielson did a better job, and I don't think that's controversial.
And now we have him taking over Punk's position in Always for Collision. So I think even in more of a way than Punk was managing creative for Collision, I think Danielson might have like, because he's like, oh well, this works for me, because I wanted to spend more time with my family. In the post media scrum, he was talking about this where he was like, yeah, I want to wrestle more, I want to be more involved, but Wednesdays and Fridays or whatever, these are weekdays I want to be with my family, so Saturday works better. And now Collision's basically being like handed over to him, instead of Punk having control over the creative stuff, which I'm there for it. This last week's Collision was great. If this is to show anything for the near future, I fully accept our new leader, Brand Danielson.
Vegan Overlord.
Yeah, and I hope the locker room vibes are better. The vibes were off, and that causes problems with a lot of people. So hopefully they're better now. That said, we hit all the matches. We talked about everything. I think all of us are pretty unanimous on these being 2 of the better pay-per-views that AEW's put out. At least this year, maybe for a longer duration. Yeah, I think unlike many of the other pay-per-views that they've done, there is not a stinker match on, especially the All Out card.
All Out for sure, yeah.
Super good. All right. Well, that's our show. So we're going to do... This is replacing the regular Gamescast this week, so we're going to do shout-outs at the end. Just to have a fun little moment. And I got one while you two think of what your shout-out is. That's just a cute little thing, and it's this dinky little console right here.
Oh, you got one.
That I've had ordered for about a year now.
Nice.
Finally got the pre-order in, and it's got a crank. It's got a crank that folds out, and then you can crank. You can go like that. What a fun gimmick.
It's the fidget spinner of portable consoles.
Exactly.
Truly.
Looks like an ice cream sandwich when it's in its case. Love it. Completely dumb in the best way.
What do I got? I got something. I gotta reach it.
Really reaching for it.
I really gotta reach it. It's off the side. I got a Master Grade Hyakushiki.
Nice.
I'm gonna build it at some point. Because I've wanted it for a while. And, turns out when you're moving out, it's make a lot of people do a lot of things if they like you a lot. Crazy how that works.
What do I want to shout out?
What
Shout
silly
out-
thing were you doing earlier today, Ryan? Can't think of anything.
I think you've confused him further, Brett.
Oh no. Not my intention.
Shout outs to the Jumping Legume, my AC in Armored Core 6.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good name. Good name. On that note, that's the end of the show. As always, Tuesdays at 7 a.m. Pacific time on the podcast platform of your choice. YouTube and Twitch. That's the show.
Going out on the Jumping Lagoon.
Going out on the Jumping Lagoon. How many times you killed that tester AC?